Hello, I'm Dave Wentworth, the great-grandson of our city's first mayor. My mom, Alicia Wentworth, was our city's first female city clerk. She loved our city's history and becoming our first city historian. After her retirement, she was interviewed for several episodes of the 90s series, Your City, Your Issues, sharing early photos and relating our city's past. In this episode, she talks about the red car, early Old Town, and more. Please enjoy this remarkable episode of FlasHBack.
Welcome back to this edition of Your City, Your Issues. Joining me now are my two guests today, our elected official, Connie Brockway. Connie, it's good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
And a very special guest that's going to be talking about, as I mentioned before, the history of Huntington Beach. Your City, Your Issues is a show designed to keep you, the viewer, in touch with the operation of your city government, your elected officials, and the issues that affect each of us as residents of the city of Huntington Beach. We talked about the history of Huntington Beach, Connie, and probably no one in the city has a better knowledge, overall knowledge, of Huntington Beach than your special guest today. So why don't you introduce your guest?
Yes, thank you, Flint. This is Alicia Wentworth. Alicia is our former city clerk. And for how many years, Alicia?
I was city clerk 15 years. I was in the office 27.
And when Alicia retired, the city council officially named her the city's historian. And Alicia comes in every Friday, and she works on her history projects, and a lot of people visit her and take photographs and bring them back to Alicia, and
Hopefully.
Alicia gets most of the time, and Alicia obtains photographs from them, and she's at the office every Friday, almost every Friday.
Well, Alicia, as you well know, no history of Huntington Beach would be complete if we didn't talk about the red car. And so we're going to be talking about the red cars and the PE, Pacific Electric, that came into Huntington Beach. And the first red car came in 1904.
That's
and that
correct.
was on July the 4th. And we're seeing a picture of that right now with the people that are gathered there. And the Pacific Electric really came out of Los Angeles and served other areas. It served Venice, I know, and came down to Long Beach. And
All of Southern California, actually.
yeah, it just was not at that point in time back in the early 1900s extending down this far.
No.
And that was something that they petitioned Henry Huntington, who owned the PE tracks, to do. And our next shot is the man himself. This is Henry E. Huntington. And Henry E. Huntington is I wouldn't say that he was the founder, because Stanton had come in earlier before that, and we had here Pacific City. You want to talk about that for just a minute?
Well, Huntington Beach at the turn of the century was Shell Beach. And it was renamed Pacific City before we incorporated, which was in 1908. But when Henry Huntington brought the red car into Huntington Beach, the city decided to change from Pacific Beach to Huntington Beach in honor of Henry Huntington for bringing this mode of transportation.
And probably a little bit
To our
more than
community.
just honoring Henry Huntington, because that was a sweet deal as far as he was concerned.
Oh, yes.
From that, he received an awful lot that was guaranteed to him, a block of shares of stock for the whole enterprise area down here at 17 cents a share, right away along the beach, 1/12 of all the subdivided lots, and 20% interest in all of the oceanfront property. Now, that's not too bad a name. Now, if you want a clincher on that, they then said, Mr. Huntington, if you run that down here, we'll name the city after you. And guess what? It then became Huntington Beach after Henry E. Huntington. And he was the nephew of Collis P. Huntington, who had to do with the Southern Pacific Railroad. But let's go on, and we have another shot here, and this is what, Alicia? This is a building that's up on wheels or something, or on the tracks?
They're moving it. This was in 1941 when the PE large depot that used to be at the pier on the pier side of well, it was Ocean Avenue at that time, but now Pacific Coast Highway and Main Street. And in 1941, the structure was depot was moved on down to Lake Street, just south of Frankfort.
We also have another shot of a PE car, number 4647, which is stopping at Huntington Beach. And I know in talking about it before, they were headed down toward, well, at that time at the Pavilion, we had another shot of the Pavilion prior to, but it's stopping right in that area. There was really a fun zone there for a while.
Oh, yes. At the holidays, they would have people come in. Well, they had the beach equipment, which was sort of a fun zone year-round, but as far as Ferris wheels and so forth, that was on holidays when they would have specialists come in.
And in this particular picture, there was a young man standing to the right with a towel around and wearing a pair of huaraches, and that young man is, do you recall?
That is Vernon Seltzer.
My heavens, is that right?
He was just going into he was a lifeguard, and he was just going into his senior year of high school at Huntington High, and he was killed shortly after that on the curve at Main Street in an auto accident.
We also have a picture of red car number 803, which was headed down toward the fair, and it's going across this bridge area. And tell us where that was.
Okay, the fair special was at 17th and Lake Street, which right now would relate to Yorktown at Lake,
Right.
just on the east side. And that was an underpass that went under 17th Street, went under the railroad tracks. And of course, at that time, we had no drainage, and every time it rained, that would fill up and be impassable. But other than the flooding, it was very interesting.
Right, and it's an interesting shot of them, and it looked
And
like
it's a beautiful shot of that.
Right, the red car was stopped right there for some reason because people are sitting on the steps of the red car and walking around it. So something must have gone wrong, and it could have been with the electrical system. And on these old trolleys and red cars, they were very dependent upon an arm at either end, depending on which way they were going, that would go up and lock on to the electrical line up there, and that supplied the electricity to run the red car. Then when they got to the end of their route, they would pull that down, attach it, and go to the other side and lift that one up and connect that and go the other way. So it was kind of an interesting thing. And there were controls at either end of the red car for them to operate.
And it didn't pollute the air.
Yeah, that's right, that's for sure. We also have a stop back here at what is now the 5 Points area.
Not the current 5 Points area. At that time, that was called 5 Points.
Right.
But it was at Garfield and Main Street.
Right, it's not where Loman's 5 Points. It was
No.
back further from that. And now that's all reconfigured, so we don't even have
Right,
all
it's
those.
where Gothard, the Gothard offshoot.
And
came in.
obviously a switching area because we can see several tracks. It looks like three different sets of tracks there perhaps.
That went
so they
into
can
the Holly
switch-
Sugar Plant.
Sure, switch on and off right there. Let's get back now and talk about Old Town. Old Town, and going back to the early 1900s, we're probably talking about a population of what, maybe less than 1,000 people.
Less than 1,000.
And one of the things that they always got together for was their big fiesta days, and part of the fiesta days were all of these horse events, and we see in the picture that the people are dressed as cowboys. Obviously,
was a
Wild
rodeo.
West, so it was a rodeo, and this was a race apparently, and the two horses are in almost looks like a dead heat coming into the finish line there.
That's exactly what it is. And it's being held in one of our old fields, which most of the area was.
And I guess that would be about, what, 1918, somewhere right
No,
around there?
this one was around the turn of the century.
Just around the turn of the century. Okay,
1900.
early 1900s. And we also know that Huntington Beach had its cultural events way back then, and we're looking at what appears to be a local division, Army detachment perhaps, not a division, but a detachment. And this was taking place down by the old Helm House, was it not?
Well, it looks like it's the Helm House, and in looking at another picture that I saw recently of the Adair Market, It's actually on Walnut Street at the Adair Market near the back end of that.
Okay.
But it took me quite a while to get that comparison made.
And
This would have been 1918, and this would have been a World War I Army band.
right around that period of time, and you can tell by the mode of dress, with the old campaign hats and so forth. Now, the where this picture was taken would be about where now, and what would be there now?
Walnut, Main Street,
And is that all
between Main and
residential?
Fifth.
What I guess we could call the old Pier Plaza, and that was quite a thing because there was all kinds of seating and everything else down there.
It was a beautiful plaza for just a stage that was on the beach, and a lot of band concerts.
And this was the south side of the
It was
pier.
on the south side of the Pavilion building.
Right.
It was built in 1939 when they redid the end of the pier and built the Pavilion.
And Mr. Gallion had a lot to do with that on a lot of the
All
events
the
that were there.
productions in
And they had
the
a
city at
Twins
that
Day,
time.
and they had
Twins Convention.
what they had
the
the
beauty
Fat People's
contest.
Day.
Yeah, well, they had the beauty contest every year.
Yes, right. We had a shot now coming up of what is now Lake Park, and this shows some of the intrusion of oil into the Lake Park area. So this would be back, what, before the 40s?
No, this is probably in the late 30s, but they hadn't started grooming the park at
Right.
all. And the trees were a lot younger at that time, even though they were pretty well grown, but not trimmed.
True enough.
Same eucalyptus trees are still there.
I wouldn't doubt that at all. Yeah, they're very pervasive, aren't they? Situation developing along Pacific Coast Highway in which an awful lot of our transits would come through, and they stayed down in these courts. And this was what, the Seabreeze Auto Carts? Is that?
And Seabreeze Auto Courts is how it began in the early 20s.
And some of the aspects of that are really interesting because during the 20s and 30s, we became, I wouldn't say nomadic, but
And these courts, these little cabins is really what they were. And it did become quite a place to stay. A lot of people were beginning to haul trailers across country,
Sure,
and
sure.
so there was a lot of people coming in.
coincidental to that, of course, the Great Depression occurred in 29, 30s. You can see in some of the shots of the Seabreeze trailer park that there have been modifications, and you see some of the trailers that they were hauling around from place to place, and it's kind of interesting to look at those compared to the RVs that we have today, and the fact that they had to haul these around. They were little teardrop kind of situations.
The
trailers.
Seabreeze had both a section for the cabins and a large section for the trailers.
And we not only had that, but we had, at the Seabreeze, we had attendants that were there to take care of things. We had, as you see now, in this shot, the picket fence around there with a mobile gas sign on it. You see the attendants, I would assume, standing there in the white. Of course, this was taken probably in the late spring or maybe early summer. And as you pointed out before, during that period of time, everyone in the summertime wore white.
That's right.
Male, female, and the whole
Another interesting thing about this photo is that every cabin was named after a fish.
Oh, really?
And it's quite a conglomeration. We had the albacore cabin. We had every fish that's in the ocean out here had a cabin named after it.
And in addition to that, they had a very unique sandwich shop located within that trailer court area. And
With very unique prices.
yes, some very, very unique prices. I had looked at this closely before, and for example, if you wanted to get, and my eyes are not that close, but ham and eggs, it looks like ham and eggs were 50 cents. Let's try and find that today. Their big thing was their Virginia baked ham, and or baked ham sandwich rather, was 20 cents. So you get a nice thick Virginia baked ham sandwich, and some of the other things, they had chili and all that stuff. And this was an old board located outside the restaurant. I'm not sure, were these for the long-term residents there, and therefore they could go into the kitchen and eat
I
there?
believe they were just
They
a
bring their own
kitchenette
food?
where people who went out and bought their own food could go in and prepare their food.
And
And it's probably for the people that lived in the cabins and the mobile people.
give us a location on there. Where would that have been?
It would have been east of First Street, which is Lake,
Okay.
and right along Pacific Coast Highway.
Okay, so we would not be as far as Beach Boulevard then?
No,
It was
that
just
did not
beyond
extend.
Lake.
even to Huntington Street.
Now, would this have been where, now I think there's a big, huge lot right there, and for a while we had a diner car,
Yes.
railroad car. Would that be the
It would have
same
been
spot?
along
Just as you go up
beyond
Lake
that.
on the east side of Lake Street
Yes.
there. So it was just leveled off after, and when did that close down? Do you have any idea?
Probably in the early 60s.
Really?
Late 50s, early 60s.
And of course, you were living practically across the street from that.
That
on the
was
beach.
in the 40s. For
Yeah.
9 months, I lived down there.
Yeah, that was really amazing.
That was a good life.
But you know, I think that when we're talking about Huntington Beach, the one thing that we have to talk about is oil. And oil is and has been the backbone of the city of Huntington Beach for years and years and years. And prior to the time that any kind of even development even started here in Huntington Beach, there was the oil. In fact, it was in the 1920s when Discovery Well A, #1, came in. And of course, there had been a great deal of incidences prior to that time indicating that there was a lot of gaseous or oily material. And we talked about once before how the kids would gather up in the Bell Mason, they'd fill them up with water and cap them in the Bell Mason fruit jars, and they would open them up and then light a match to it and go poof like that. It'd be a mini explosion. And you could actually walk along some of the sidewalk areas where there were cracks in the sidewalk, throw a match down and go poof. You know? So there's a lot of gas here. So obviously, and if you look obviously at the strata that would run from Signal Hill and run down through this way, it became very obvious that there may be oil down there. And when Discovery Well A1 first came in, it changed the complexion of Huntington Beach from what then was a sleepy little resort town to heavy industry with oil coming in. And we've got some shots of some of those early oil derricks and so forth that were found here. They began to proliferate, I would say, at a fantastic rate through the 20s and through the 30s in particular, and up to the 40s. And here again, we see that not only the wooden derricks, and it looks like these are about 4 stories high, but railroad cars, tankers, and everything right in between the derricks and so forth. You can see that it was quite an industry. And I don't think that people have a concept today of how much of that we had going on in the past. The amount of oil and extraction that was going on.
And that wood was all soaked in creosote.
Oh, yes.
And when there was a spark and they went up in flames, they were a very, very,
I can imagine.
very red hot fire.
We have some other shots of oil derricks here, and we see that the operation was in the daytime. And we have a shot following this, held at night. Basically, it's the same shot that we just saw, so we just centered on it during the day, and then we had a nighttime shot also. And the boundaries extended all the way out to, and the sign on the derrick here indicates Newland. Would that be?
It doesn't mean Newland Street. It was a Newland Weebling, which was
I see.
a stop along the way that
Okay.
identified where they were on the tracks.
Okay. And would you have any idea where that location might be?
This is located out near the Newland House.
Oh, okay.
Even though
Okay.
above
the hill, on top of the hill
But it wasn't
there.
over as far as Newland Street.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. In addition to that, we have both sides of Pacific Coast Highway. And you know, the thing is, you go down to the beach during that time, we've got a shot of the people down at the beach in their swimming gear and all that stuff. And you look at the skyline, there really was no skyline, it was all derricks. So you're completely surrounded by this. And if you look at the beach goes way back a lot further, right almost up to where what was now the concrete walls down there from 5th on up, I think. But it goes all the way back to that. So quite an extent there. Let's go through some of these very quickly, because what we're seeing here is kind of a retrospective of oil industry. We've got the bluff area, the amount of erosion that was taking place at the bluffs, and what they tried to do way back then. We talk about bluff erosion today, but even way back then there was a great deal of bluff erosion, and even to the point of taking steel railroad tracks and putting them in there along with buttressing them with rocks and so forth. And the access roads, for heaven's sake, were right along that line, whereas if they made a wrong turn, they were down into the ocean. We see some of the beach shots with it looks like Normandy beachhead, but here they are with the railroad the tracks sticking up is try to control that
Which
erosion.
eventually became probably the background for the cement bluff
Yes.
that's out there now.
Right. And offshore drilling began way back when, and it was down on, and we see a shot here, looks like Bolsa Chica State Beach, or what was
That's
known
right.
then as Tin Can Beach,
That's right.
before it became Bolsa Chica. That was privately owned there at the time, wasn't it? The beach, a lot of the
This
beach area.
part was probably actually owned by the state all of
okay.
that time. It was not in the city limits.
This would be a 1950s picture of the oil refinery, and here again is Pacific Coast Highway. If you look at the palms that are located in back, that's Golden West Street, I would assume. And a lot of the wooden derricks were then replaced, needless to say, with the steel ones. We see some of the old wooden derricks along 13th and Palm. That was probably the extent of the oil drilling. I'm looking in the background. I don't see rigs out further than that, mostly orchards and agricultural.
And that's looking toward town.
Right,
Which,
toward the ocean.
Yeah, certainly
right.
doesn't look anything like today.
And some of the equipment that was used, the old pipes and so forth. It was interesting that Sugar Beach Refinery, they decided Sugar Beach weren't really that much money in it, and so they went into oil refinery instead of refining the sugar beets and extracting the sugar. Gushers were something that came in all the time, and some of the old hands around here can still remember the sound and the trembling of the earth when a gusher was coming
Great
in.
roar.
And if you want to see a great shot, here's one. We'd showed this before, but it was right behind the Seabreeze Cafe with a gusher coming in and that oil there. Again, oil fires were indigenous to the area. Not only, as you can see, this one burning right through the structures, and some of the oil fires were created by the amount of oil that was left on the land.
Yes, the sump fires, they called them.
We've got some of the old hands that worked in the fields then, and a couple of shots there. And here,
Harry Overmeyer was our city engineer,
There you
and
go.
our mayor was Tom Talbert on the right. On the left was Harry Overmeyer.
yeah, those were the days. And wrapping up very quickly, Pacific Coast Highway changed from just a one-lane little road with oil wells on both sides, the widenings in the 1950s.
And derricks along the
Yes,
beach.
and those old derricks were replaced by the pumpers, which I call the bird's head pumpers. We have some shots of that. Even those in town now, and they even put insulation around some of those. Last couple of photos here, and we have two people out in the oil field. Tell us about this picture, because it's very indicative of what I assume to be about the 1970s.
Yes, this picture was taken for a magazine cover.
Mhm.
And I don't remember exactly what magazine, but I'm sure Steve would remember. And he is on the left. Steve Kohler works for our building department. And this is just an oil worker on the right.
We're going to wrap things up with a couple of photos that were taken by our own director, Tim Flanagan. This is top of Edwards Hill, looking northwardly on a beautiful cloudy day, and he said the project was to show the various forms of, I guess, the different gradation and so forth and texture. And then with the final shot, also taken by Tim Flanagan.
And you also can see the
McDonnell Douglas.
McDonnell Douglas and the
We ran through an awful lot of
Scotland.
photos today, and we ran through some of them very quickly, but I think it will give you, the viewer, kind of a retrospective of the city of Huntington Beach, what it was then, back in 1904, when the first red car came down here. Prior to that time, we don't have any photographs to show you of Pacific City, which was supposed to rival Atlantic City on the East Coast, but never quite reached that far. But Connie, I know that you're still involved in the history aspect of it. We've got just a few seconds to wrap things up here. So we want to thank you for being on the show. And just one final thought, and that is you have, Alicia comes down here every Friday.
Yes.
So if they would like to bring their photos down, and
We'd
she
really
will
like
copy,
that.
all right, that would be greatly appreciated. Any of you that wish to bring photos down, we'll photocopy them, or we'll copy them, take them down to one of the copying shops, take care of that for you, and get the photo back to you so that you still have your photo. Because of time constraints, that wraps up this edition of Your City, Your Issues. I want to thank you out there for joining us today.